Hey, good morning, everybody. It is great to see all of you here today. Thank you for sharing a greeting. I encourage you to do that today so we can all see each other. It's so interesting because when your names pop up in the chat like this, I immediately just imagine where you are and what you're doing and how you're engaging or watching. Don't worry, you can be wearing your pajamas. I'm not thinking about that. But it's so cool that every Sunday like this, we meet live still, and that I'm in my office, but you're in your homes probably or somewhere else. And yet God's networking works. Yet we still connect and we're still growing. Hey, hi, Dan and Christine too, and Linda and Sue, all of you. It's so great to see you. Please share in the chat, reach out, be sure to sign in online because that's part of how we grow and develop together as a community. And I also want to encourage you all through this time, feel free to share your thoughts and your ideas. I have loved hearing from you. I had a great email exchange this week with one of the people who's around here all the time about last Sunday's sermon. I just encourage you, share your thoughts and ideas because that's how we learn and how we grow together. So let me pray for this time. God, bless us in this time with your spirit, with new insights, with troubling discoveries, and with a willingness to grow. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Yeah, the reason I say troubling discoveries is I'm wondering if anybody had a troubling discovery this week. We've had multiple troubling discoveries in our world and in our lives, especially over the last few years. The amount of change, hi Gail, yay, good to see you. The amount of change that we have all experienced and endured has been extraordinary. And if anything, we might be a little bit fatigued by that entirely. You know how some things, wonderful surprises, sometimes are still stressful just because we didn't see them coming and didn't expect it and all of those things. Well, I know if you are in Minnesota, as I am, then you shared a surprise with me this week. Yeah, anybody recognize what this awful thing might be? It was on my back porch before the sun even came up this week. Anybody? I'm sorry that I'm showing this to you. And I just am amazed by how many people post pictures and talk about how beautiful it is. I think it's horrifying. It's a surprise. Christine, I see you. I want to talk about this a little bit today because unexpected things in our lives cause stress, whether they're positive or negative. Okay. And I think it's important to understand that this stress that unexpected things cause is part of our physiology. It's part of how our bodies are built. It's our human nature, and it's good. We need it because it's part of how we determine whether or not we're safe in the world, right? We assess the situation. Our minds do it without us even knowing. We immediately assess the situation, and we're constantly doing that as a yes, Jen, as a part of our human nature in order to determine, is there a threat? Am I safe? Think about this. It has to be inherent to who we are because that's how we learn that snakes bite and how we learn that tornadoes tear up our homes. We learn to be vigilant for danger. And our bodies do it automatically. And so sometimes when there are changes, even though they're in the end probably good things, or when there are surprises that may become very positive, in the immediacy of seeing something we don't expect, our heart rate increases just a little bit. Our adrenaline, yes, Mary, that's exactly what it is, fight or flight. And we don't really choose it. Our bodies choose it for us because that's part of how we stay alive. It's a part of what it means to be a human being on this earth. We are assessing our safety all the time. In my opinion, this can have a really positive effect because you and I obviously are still alive in the world, so we've learned what's safe and what's not. Yeah, I know, Christine. Yes. But it can also have a very negative effect too, because sometimes I think we see something we don't expect, and the anxiety that wells up in us, well, we lean into that and we decide this isn't safe. even if it is, even if it might be okay, even if it might be actually really cool, just because our heart rate increases and our adrenaline moves, we instantly choose the anxiety side and decide that it's not safe when it's something we don't expect, we are surprised by, especially when we're trying to find things that'll help us feel safe and comforted, like in the last few years, right? I think, though, that this can be problematic, especially when it involves people, because we develop biases, if you will, about people. We learn what is safe and what is not, or we think we know what is safe and what is not, or who is safe and who is not, who is got our best interests at heart and who is really just like a crouching tiger. We do this with people, and sometimes we learn from experience with people. Like we learn through a whole bunch of interaction that, okay, this person and I are probably not going to be the best of friends. Or, okay, this person has hurt me multiple times. I'm not going back for more. That's fair. But sometimes those biases or those expected outcomes go past an individual person even and into an entire group of people, say, young people outside loitering, wearing hoodies, etc. Or say, you follow me, don't you? So our biases can spread from the individual reaction we personally had to entire groups, or somebody who even looks like or reminds us of the person who we had problems with. And you know what else? We don't just base our biases on what we've experienced in life personally. We base it also on what other people have experienced. See, I don't need to find out firsthand that eating that is going to kill me. It killed that person, so I'm good. I don't need to do that. You follow me? It's a part of how we are as human beings. But we also learn biases about other people by what we're told and what we're taught, what we think other people are experiencing, or what is, do you follow me on this? Immediately when we're posed with something we don't expect, and even sometimes it is something we expect, our mind, our bodies make instantaneous judgments without us even being aware of it. And I want to look at this today in light of this Bible story that we have been working on for quite a while. It's the story of Saul. Yes, Christine, agreed. Yes, collective biases. That's what we're talking about today. I want you to hear this, okay? This is important. And you know, even if you're not so sure about the Bible or the Bible stories, this, you got to hear this, because, thank you, Michael, because this applies to everyone in every circumstance. So this Saul guy, okay, you may know already because we've been talking about it for weeks, and if you don't, that's okay. Thank you, Michael, for sharing Acts 9. Go to that link and you can read more about Saul. Read the previous chapter too. He was persecuting Christians, and so what that means is that Jesus followers is that he was so tied to the Jewish law way of things, the temple way of things, that when people started following Jesus and doing things in unexpected ways, because Jesus did all kinds of things that no one expected, and the disciples experienced a zillion things that were unexpected completely. The anxiety created a lot of problems, and Saul had a goal to eradicate it. Everybody who was going to follow Jesus. But what happened was God interrupted Saul on this journey, and a big bright light shone, and he went blind for 3 days. And somebody came and prayed for him. We've already talked about this guy, Ananias, but we're going to go forward in the story just a tiny bit here, because I want you to hear what happens. It's the same story we looked at last week from a different angle, okay? Go with me on this. Saul stayed with the believers in Damascus for a few days. This is while he was just recovering from his blindness, getting back on his feet. And get this, and immediately he began preaching about Jesus in the synagogue, saying, "He is indeed the Son of God." Let me ask you this question. If a person who had been trying to capture and vilify and jail and even execute people like you suddenly showed up with a absolute opposite way of seeing things, affirming what you believe, would you buy it? No, your bias is legit. Saul earned Saul earned the reputation of being a killer, and yet he just goes right out there. I had a great conversation with one of you this week about how Saul is just a kind of a type A. This is the words that one of you used, and how his heart might have changed, but his demeanor didn't, and he just went right out there and started preaching without even thinking about the fact that he would have to earn trust. Okay, so let's keep going. All who heard him were amazed. Isn't this the same man who caused such devastation among Jesus' followers? I'm not sure amazed is a positive word in this. They asked. And didn't he come here to arrest them and take them in chains to the leading priests? Saul's preaching became more and more powerful, and the Jews in Damascus couldn't refute his proofs that Jesus was indeed the Messiah. After a while, some of the Jews plotted together, here it is, to kill him. Yep. They were watching for him day and night at the city gate so they could murder him. But Saul was told about their plot. I want to clarify one thing on this. The Jews during that time, that the first Jews mentioned, may have been the temple leaders who also took Jesus out, right? Who he used to work for. But when it says some of the other believers, that may not have been necessarily Jesus followers per se, but there's some language in original language that says these were Saul's followers, that Saul thought they thought Saul was saying the right things, okay? So during the night, some of these people lowered him in a large basket through an opening in the city wall. When Saul arrived in Jerusalem, he tried to meet with the believers, but they were all afraid of him. Okay, he earned his reputation, right? Don't you think? I agree. Oh, I got really small. Why? Okay, now I'm bigger. They didn't believe he had truly become a believer. Then Barnabas brought him to the apostles and told them how Saul had seen the Lord on the way to Damascus and how the Lord had spoken to Saul. He also told them that Saul had preached boldly in the name of Jesus in Damascus. Take note. What's that name? Barnabas. Barnabas? Who's this guy? And why in the world did he do this? Let's keep going. So Saul stayed with the apostles. Barnabas talked them into this, I think, and went all around Jerusalem with them, preaching boldly in the name of the Lord. He debated with some Greek-speaking Jews, but they tried to murder him. His reputation preceded him. It was pretty hard for a guy like this to talk about love and loving your enemies and praying for those who persecute you, because those were Jesus' teachings. So what was he talking about, since he was the guy who just did that? When the believers heard about this, they took him down to Caesarea. It was clear it wasn't going to work, and sent him away to Tarsus, his hometown. The church then had peace throughout Judea, Galilee, and Samaria, and it became stronger as the believers lived in the fear of the Lord. And with the encouragement of the Holy Spirit, it also grew in numbers. Do you see the conundrum in this story? Do you see the problem? I mean, here's this guy who had this amazing, eye-opening experience with God where he realized that he'd been wrong about something, and he had the courage to rise up and speak about that which he had previously totally denied and tried to kill. And so it took massive courage for him to do this, and yet who can blame people for not accepting his words? Saul had earned that reputation. They had a bias against him. For good reason. They had learned that Saul wasn't safe. It takes a long time to change biases sometimes. It really does. So I have asked myself over and over, what in the world caused Barnabas to help him? I mean, really, here's this Saul guy giving up, totally not able to preach or teach anywhere without plots to kill him or murder him. They're just not just ignoring. They're not just going to a new church. That didn't really exist then. They're not just like, withholding their tithes. They're trying to kill him. And yet Barnabas helps him. What is that about? So this is one of those places that I wish the Bible had more in the narrative. I wish there was more story right here. This is way too short for my understanding and liking. How did Barnabas know that Saul had really changed? How did he know that Saul was suddenly safe? Or did he think, well, he may not be safe, but I got to risk. I got to take the risk. I got to try with this guy. I don't know. I wish that Luke had more detail shared here in what Barnabas was thinking. I don't know if Luke ever had a conversation with Barnabas about this. Maybe it was more of I heard this story. I don't know. But I wish there was a narrative underneath this story that helped us understand. Something like this: Barnabas was afraid of Saul and skeptical of his newly found faith in Jesus. His audacity in preaching was stunning and concerning. I wish this was in the Bible, but it's not. He pondered Jesus' words about loving enemies and praying for those who persecute you. And Barnabas wondered what Jesus meant when he talked about turning the other cheek. Barnabas prayed and prayed about what to do about Saul. And then, I wish this was in the Bible too, but it's not. None of this is. God spoke to Barnabas from the clouds. Or even better, God showed up in person and said, Saul is safe now. Go help him. None of this happens in the Bible. We don't have any clue as to why Barnabas took the risk to help Saul. We don't know. We don't know why anybody in their right mind would advocate for Saul in this situation. But he did, and they did. And no matter what Barnabas and the others do here is an extraordinary act of God's generosity. It's an extraordinary act of grace. I just don't even know how to. This story should be bigger than it is. This is a great example of what happens when people interact with God. Our hearts are changed and we're willing to offer generosity. And I'm not saying you should always do this with people. And I don't know why Barnabas did. But clearly, it was the right decision in the end. The risk was worth taking in this case. We all have automatic reactions when something or someone is different than what we expect and than what they have been before, or even just surprising they show up when someone scares us, frankly. We have automatic reactions in our body. Our instinctual reactions raise the question, is this okay? Is this safe? Our heart rate increases. I know I'm repeating myself, but I don't want you to forget this. Our adrenaline flows, and we make, before we're even aware of it sometimes, often before we're aware of it, unconscious snap decisions. Safe, not safe. Threat, not threat. Keep an eye on, concerning. And when we do that, sometimes we don't even see other things. We're just focused on the thing that's worrisome, that we can't reconcile in our minds. And all of this can happen without us even being aware of it. And then when we make these snap decisions, our assumptions are fueled by many things, what we've experienced and also what others have experienced. And additionally, what people have said, what you see on the news, for crying out loud, you get me? And unfortunately, sometimes, even though our anxiety may be naturally heightened for good reason, we do sometimes make the wrong decisions. The wrong decisions about people, the wrong judgments immediately. Because we're just not very good at this. And actually, unintentionally, sometimes we really, really hurt people. We can really hurt people by our natural instincts. Barnabas clearly counteracted any natural instincts here and did something crazy generous. How does that apply in the small ways we live our lives? How does that immediate, am I safe, am I not, are you okay, are you going to hurt me, can I trust you? How does that affect how we interact with people in this world on a day-to-day basis? See, I'm guessing everybody connected here this morning, there's several of you today, yay, great to see you. I'm guessing everybody connected here this morning has a huge network of people in your lives. Some of you larger and some of you maybe smaller. Either way, there are people you interact with in this world no matter what. I'm guessing none of you live in isolation. Even if it's not face-to-face, it's on the internet. You're connecting with people. What do your snap judgments do? What does your body naturally do with people? It's pretty hard to change our minds about someone once we've decided that they're bad or unsafe or not to be trusted. It's pretty hard. What if God calls us to something else? I want you to watch this for a minute, okay? It's got sort of a corporate bent to it, but watch it. It's really good. It's produced by PwC. Watch.
Are you seriously considering her as a candidate?
Don't trust
She's a woman.
She's a
This is a
woman.
man's
She's
job.
clearly not educated.
Really? Does she even speak English?
That's not me. I'm not like that. You call it an honest mistake. Science calls it a blind spot. Our unconscious mind is a mysterious and powerful thing. It makes 90% of our decisions without us even knowing it. Our brains are overloaded with 11 million pieces of information every second. Yet we can only process about 40 of them. So we're wired to make cognitive shortcuts, using past experiences to make assumptions. And you know what happens when we assume. Our unconscious mind can put us on autopilot, determining where we sit, who we eat lunch with, who we turn to for advice, and who we choose to offer a helping hand. Living our lives with blind spots can put us in a tunnel. Same point of view, same decisions, same outcomes. We can find ourselves trapped in the land of snap judgments and misconceptions. We've all been on both the giving and receiving end of blind spots. Think about it. Who's talented? Who's able? Who can I trust? Who belongs? We've all been there. Blind spots are part of the human condition. Our choices have consequences for us and the people we interact with. By accepting that blind spots exist, we can stop. Imagine what possibilities exist if we could do it all over again. Different perspectives, inclusive relationships, diverse networks, better outcomes, seeing people for who they really are. People like you, with unlimited potential. We all have blind spots. Once you accept that you have them, you can choose to do something about it. It's time to check your blind spots and focus on what's possible.
Isn't that a wonderful video? Think about that for just a moment. Blind spots. It's so relevant to the story of Saul. Saul is deliberately blinded, perhaps to remove the blind spots. And then when Saul is opened again, then the world is different. Saul can see Jesus when Saul's eyes are opened. And Saul still will navigate through the world with people who also have blind spots. But for some reason, Barnabas chooses to remove that bias, to set it aside. Here's the thing. How do we know when to trust our natural instincts and when we need to overcome them? How do you know when this is the time that you give a chance or you smile and don't turn away or cower? How do you know when this is the time to help and how do you know that it's not? I think in our natural beginning instincts, I think there's a lot to this question, and I don't have a clear, obvious answer for you because, you'd like to say, well, you pray about it and then God tells you. But I mean, the Bible is full of stories in which we have no idea of knowing how God informed this person of that. It's just this Barnabas story is one of them, okay? I think that self-awareness is a beginning. It's a start, self-awareness. And what I mean by that is you being aware of how your body and your mind works, that you automatically, when you see this, you see that person, you see that color of person, you see this type of clothing. We automatically make those snap judgments. But you being aware, me being aware that I do that, maybe I can slow down long enough and say, wait a minute, why am I reacting? How am I reacting? Is my reaction legit or am I just being biased right now? I think that our ways of learning to be loving and generous, hi Doug, good to see you. The ways of learning to be loving and generous people of God. I think it means that we are willing to learn how to be aware of how our natural instincts, our earthly stuff that's good but can get in the way. We learn to be aware of them and how these things affect us. We, as generous people of God, we need to be willing to question our human nature rather than just roll with it every single time. You know, they say trust your gut, but be careful because your gut can lead you astray. It can cause problems and it can hurt people. See, our natural instincts, our biases, our blind spots may not even really be our faults. That's just how our bodies work. Okay? But they are our responsibility. Part of sharing God's generosity is giving people a chance. And I see you do this. I see you do it. I see many of you do it. I see you do it at the Matthew 25 food distribution when you continually smile, whether the car is more expensive than your house or the car is clearly just about to fall apart. I see you treat people with kindness when they come into the bread and bakery giveaway, even when they're afraid to make eye contact with you. I see you operate with kindness. I see this happen where we welcome people, even people who don't look like us or they're not what we expect. I see it and I just wonder, does this grab you in any way this morning? Is God calling your mind to a time in which maybe you weren't so sure about generosity? See, because doing these things here at Matthew 25 food distribution is one thing, and at the Friday bread and bakery giveaway is another thing, because we know our job and we know our role. But how do these experiences with Matthew 25 food distribution and the Friday bread and bakery giveaway or any other thing you're involved in, how do they change every moment of your existence? The whole purpose of interacting with God, and I believe these things are interacting with God, is that we would be transformed, that we would be willing to be changed. It matters. How you and I discern or see or view or value or vilify people is a part of why there are hierarchies built that say some are better than others and some are to be treated with skepticism immediately, others are not to be trusted. When we are willing to think broader, wider, to let God change our hearts, have our minds transformed by the love of God. When we are willing to let God, here's a different translation, change the way we think, not just what we think, but the way we think. When we are willing to be transformed, then love really has a better chance, doesn't it? Grace has a better chance when we are willing to say, yep, I have biases. Yep, I have blind spots. Oh God, change me. Open my eyes. And I want to show you another video today. I know it's a 2-video Sunday, but this one matters. I want you to see this, okay? Watch this. Maybe it'll help you understand why all of those little judgments that we make of people really add up and what we could do differently. Listen, watch. Yep. Christine, thanks for your comment. We all have biases and blind spots. The importance is coming to know and understand them. Yes. Yes. People are worth it. The words we use, thank you, Mary, and the words we use matter, and how we see ourselves matters. Yes. And here's what I want to tell you. You are a victim of biases too. It doesn't matter who you are in this world. This is human nature. And so what I want to tell you today is no matter what kinds of words have been stuck on you or that you have had poured into your spirit or your existence, that white paper that he received, hear me say this, you are loved. You are beloved. And I promise to do my best to see you with eyes of grace and generosity too. And I hope you will work with me, us, on this as we learn to truly love our neighbor, love our community with open eyes, knowing what the biases are and whether they're valid or not. Often they're not. I think it's important, friends, to let God change the way that we think. Really, truly. It's how we learn to trust in God's spirit of love and generosity, rather than our own spirits of judgment and criticism, rather than the words that have been said to us or in us. When we learn to trust God's spirit, what we receive is love, and what we give is love. We're going to close with a song today. It's an important song. It's called You Say. Stay with it, okay? Process this for a minute.
I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I will never
So hear these words. You are loved and you are beloved. And yes, we're human beings, but every action and every interaction, every thought and every look affects other people. Everyone is beloved. Everyone is. And so I'm praying that our hearts and our minds, our eyes will be open to the biases and blind spots that we have. That we'll take just a moment to wonder if our worry, our anxiety is legit, or if we're just resisting something. We're just looking differently at something. Just take a moment, think it through. Listen for the voice of God. I encourage you to see this world in a new way as you allow God to change the way you think. And I'm doing my best to do the same. So take care, everybody. It's wonderful to see all of you. Again, it's always good to see you. So I just encourage you to keep connecting. If this sermon has been helpful to you today in any way, share it with somebody. Share a link with a friend. I don't need to be heard, but I do want people to know that they're loved. And I want people to know that people who are following Jesus care about this. We care about people. We really do. So share and live life with your eyes open. Take care, everybody, and much, much love to all of you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.